Welcome to How to Do Hybrid. Hope you had a great lunch. Our speaker is Ken Spears, DTM, and current Club Growth Director. He's going to tell us all about it. He wants to encourage everyone to achieve their own personal success. Here's to all of our success. Take it away, Ken.
Thank you so much, Jean. Yay. Today, we're going to have a lot of fun and talk about hybrid club meetings. Most importantly, it's going to be conversational. What I would like everybody to do, if you have a question, is put it in the chat. Jean's going to monitor the chat, and then she's going to interrupt me and ask those questions as we go along. I've broken down today's meeting into a number of different sections. First of all, why do we even want to go hybrid? That's the first question we're going to ask. Then we're going to talk about the challenges of your venue where you have a meeting, about the staff involvement of making a hybrid meeting tick. And then, of course, we'll talk about the equipment and all that's required to make that happen, both from a very basic meeting all the way up to a studio broadcast situation. Make sense? I hope, for everybody. Let me do one thing real quickly here. There we go. Now I feel better. Of course, our first question is why go hybrid? And before I even answer that question, just to let you all know, I put all my talking points in the chat. So if you want to look at the talking points, it's not going to tell you exactly what I'm going to say, but it'll give you the concept of what I'm talking about. It's all there in the chat. Of course, the first reason why we go hybrid is to retain members. Many clubs have members coming in from all over the world now to visit their club or to join their club. And when they have these members coming in, you have to be able to service them. I'm in a number of clubs that have members that live outside of the general area. So if we had an in-person meeting, they would not be able to attend. But we all love the participation of those members outside of the club. That to me is the main reason to go hybrid, because you want to maintain those members and make sure that they'll feel part of the club, that they're wanted, they're loved, and they're valued as members of the club. If you get nothing else out of this meeting, nothing else, remember, the reason of going hybrid is to retain all those members and make it happen. The other reason, of course, to go hybrid is sometimes in this pandemic, people are still leery about going into a room without a mask on or to a meeting, and they can't really fathom the idea, oh, I'm going to sit in this room and be with everybody, and the circulation is poor, the ventilation is poor. They're not happy about that. So hybrid meetings will also cater to those people, even though they're in the same geographic area that the meeting would be held in normally, they can still do that. There's a definite thing about having a hybrid meeting. There's a cost versus online versus club dues situation. There's a cost for a venue. There's a cost for a hybrid meeting, and there's a cost of club dues. And I think that everybody should pay their club dues as any club would do, whether you're meeting in person or hybrid. And you have to remember that some clubs may stick to Zoom only, or some other thing such as Microsoft Teams, if that's what they're using. They may stick with that format only and not go back to meeting in person. It may be cost prohibitive to do that. So people in these meetings need to make sure that they understand the difference between the club dues, where they're meeting, the dues to cover the cost of a Zoom meeting, but everybody should be paying equally whatever it is. Obviously, if you're not meeting in a place that doesn't have as rent, you have to pay the rent dues, you have to pay all the other things that go on. If you're meeting in a place that you get to meet for free, you don't have those issues. But yet there is still cost involved in having a hybrid meeting, not just with the equipment itself, but with the cost of Zoom or Teams or whatever it is that you're using each and every month. You have to rent those things. Zoom, what is Zoom right now? $15 a month, I think, if I remember correctly. And there are programs where you can get it for less if you buy a year in advance. And the club, each member can bear that cost. So it's really economical. If you get I think it's $120 for 1 year. They still have that deal. $10 a person for a year. That's not bad. Divided up by 2 payments with your thing. Instead of $45, it becomes $50 to have a meeting. you're on Zoom, the club is golden. And then there are no cost of ribbons, certificates, or any of those things, because you can do all that virtually in the Zoom environment. So hybrid meetings offer a way to retain members and to cut costs. However, let's also remember that in Toastmasters, the goal of Toastmasters really is to meet in person. They have that experience of standing in front of a group of people to talk, to gain that confidence and that skills that you need to communicate so well with those out there, to get your message across. And that's really the essence of Toastmasters. It's interesting right now. I'm looking at a little green light in front of me. I'm talking. I feel good. However, I would feel better if I were standing in a room with everybody around me and talking. I mean, for me, I know that makes me feel better. And I know that for some of you, that's the case. There are a lot of people who did not go to or do not go to club meetings right now because they are on Zoom or on Teams, simply for that very reason. They don't like to be looking into a little green light. But it is the reality that we have. The other thing about hybrid meetings is they teach you how to work in an environment such as this. When I was much younger, I used to work for a company. They'd fly me to New York every month for meetings, different things that would go on. If this were the case today, I would not be doing those trips. I'd be saving the company thousands of dollars because I would be meeting via Zoom and doing it much more efficiently. It's the reality of life now. It is the reality of life, and we're going to be doing more and more things via Zoom. And the things that Toastmasters gives us in learning how to do a Zoom meeting or in a hybrid meeting such as this, we have a group of people in person and people online, and how to interact. That is a real world skill that we need to communicate to every member. It's a very, 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 very valuable skill that we're all going to get. Time to travel to a meeting. I know that this morning they started at 8 o'clock. If I'd gone to the keynote, if we'd done this at Chapman University, I would have had to leave the house at 7:15 to get there for 8 o'clock for the keynote. Instead, I was lucky enough to be able to roll out of bed about 7:30 and be at the keynote at 8. I didn't have the time of travel issue. I did not have the cost of traveling. That is a very nice thing too. So hybrid meetings helps the individual save time and money as well for those who do not want to meet in person. And you're going to have those now. Those people who say, hey, I love being a member of the club, but I don't want to meet in person all the time because it's just not convenient. I have a club that meets Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. And I have to tell you, I'm not that much of a morning person. To get up early to go to that meeting, even though it's only 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away, it's still a struggle for me quite often. The next thing we want to talk about in hybrid meetings, why you have a hybrid meeting, is how many online meetings do your members attend a week? That is a big question you need to ask your members, because some clubs won't want to have that many hybrid meetings. They might want to shift it between 2 in-person meetings a month, maybe 2 meetings online a month, because their members are having so many meetings with work and other things that they're doing in life that they don't want to be online quite that much. I know that for me personally, again, I'm online a lot. I do look forward to going back and meeting in person, but I see the value, of course, of doing it this way. And I know that when you're talking about retaining members from far away into your club, that are in your club, when you're talking about people who don't have the time or press for time and they want to come to a meeting, this is a great venue. And these are reasons why you want to have a hybrid meeting. But really, I want to get back to that in-person experience. I know that the in-person experience is more valuable than the online experience in the growth of being a Toastmaster, of getting up in front of a group of people and talking. There's nothing more frightening for so many people to do. Talking into a little green light, not nearly as hard. And here I am, I'm sitting down and doing all this. In a club meeting, you're standing up, you're using your whole body, your body language is happening. These are the things that we learn as Toastmasters, how to control all of that. The shaking nerves. I think Lori Jacobs is on this call, and she would remember me saying in our club meetings, what do you want to accomplish in your speech today? Well, I always tell them, I just don't want to stand up there and pee in my pants, because I don't want to be scared. I want to learn how to overcome that fear. And that's why we need to have meetings in person as well as meetings online. Absolutely. clubs need to decide. Clubs need to decide if they're going to have a hybrid meeting. They all need to buy into this concept. Like, do we want to have our members go ahead and be all online? Do we want to split our meetings half and half? Do we want to have every meeting be both in person and virtual? These are the questions that the clubs have to ask. And by knowing that what these options are and what the club options are, you can really sit down and make some very, very valuable decisions about the club itself and how you want to go about the meeting and how you want to make the meeting come together. Now, does anybody have any questions about this part of it? The why go hybrid thoughts? Give them to Jean in the chat and she'll interrupt me and we'll try and answer those. If not, I think it's a very compelling argument, A, to go hybrid because you want to retain members and get those experiences, but we also want to maintain and move back into the in-person experience. We all know that Tuesday was demask day in California, where you got to take your mask off if you're vaccinated and go out into public and do things. The California Department of Health also said that we are allowed to go maskless and have meetings if we are vaccinated. So we all need to prepare for this. We need to prepare very hard. And as we prepare for this, we have to consider the venue. A lot of us in this pandemic have lost our meeting locations. We've lost them because the place is closed. They don't want to have people in there in this capacity. They have different priorities now. There's a myriad number of reasons why venues are not there. Some venues are still there, but a lot of people have lost their venue and they have to search for a new venue. Can your club meet in the place they used to meet? Does it still exist? That's the first question you have to ask amongst your club people and your sergeant at arms, your president, your VPE, your executive staff of your club. They all need to go out and say, okay, we used to meet at Denny's in their back room. Can we still do that? That's the first question. And it's a very important consideration because once you determine where you're going to meet, you must experiment in the venue to see if you can do a hybrid meeting. And what does that mean, experiment? You can't just say, oh, we're going to meet next week at Denny's in the back room. And for those who want to come in person, great. And for those who want to be in hybrid, great, and set it all up. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to fail. It's going to fail miserably because you haven't experimented. And there are a lot of considerations in the venue scenario. So you must experiment to make sure it works. My club my home club, San Clemente Toastmasters, we meet at the Baha'i Center in San Clemente on Tuesday nights. We have yet to have an experimental meeting in our typical location, even though they just installed Wi-Fi, but we don't know how the Wi-Fi there works yet. We don't know the strength of the Wi-Fi. We don't know how it's going to impact the meeting, what kind of equipment is going to be used there, whether it's going to be good or bad. We have no idea. So we need to experiment with that. You as a club, all of you on this call as a club, need to experiment with the venue, with one exception. If you're in a corporate club, I'll take an example like TK1SC or another example, Pacific Life Newport Beach. They have these beautiful boardrooms that they meet in, and they have screens, they have internet connection already built into the building, and they have cameras. They don't need to experiment because they're already doing it. So if you're in a corporate club and you're already doing this, you're 9/10 of the way ahead of everybody else. If you're in a club that doesn't have these facilities, you are definitely not ahead of the curve and you have to experiment to make sure things work. One of the most important aspects of a hybrid meeting is noise. Noise levels are critical. Yes?
We have two questions.
Okay, go ahead.
First one is, why are all gallery videos killed?
Why are all gallery videos killed?
I don't know what that means.
Me neither.
Okay. That was Chuck Marlette that asked that.
Yeah,
And
I can answer that.
Wait, are we talking about the blackout video, everybody's name being blacked out? That's for bandwidth on Zoom.
Well, there's no live gallery feeds is what I'm saying.
It's a spotlight that I spotlight the speaker.
He's spotlighting the speaker. If that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, those two things. I get it. I
No,
get it. I get it.
I'm talking about the gallery. Every gallery persona has just a still picture locked in. There's no live feed from anyone in the gallery when I just checked.
Yeah, because he spotlighted the speaker. When you spotlight the speaker, it freezes the gallery.
Okay, well, that. Let me register my resistance to that and go on with your program.
Okay.
And
Well,
our
that's a Zoom,
second,
that's a Zoom thing. That has nothing to do with a hybrid meeting.
No,
and our
I
second
And
know.
if you don't spotlight the speaker, then the gallery can be live for sure. Absolutely.
yeah. But
and our second,
this is like an infomercial, running it here with no live input except from the speaker.
Well, hopefully
yeah.
we'll if he takes the spotlight off of me, Zoom
can
should
still-
technically spotlight me. So I see Christopher Bear wearing it in his hands.
Yeah, Ken, it's just because we all have our videos off.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
That's what I
Yeah.
think. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
and this,
Yeah.
our second question is probably more, can Zoom training materials be emailed?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. There's Zoom itself is the software component. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in
okay,
this whole thing. But just to get to it right now for one quick thing, Zoom training materials can be emailed. If you go to Zoom, there are training videos. There are videos that actually talk about doing a hybrid meeting using Zoom and some of the things that go on if you're using Zoom and I believe that Microsoft Teams has the same thing as well as WebEx. All three have different tutorials that you can use. And if you go to YouTube, of course, there are many videos. And if you do a Google search, you can find thousands of comments now about doing meetings like this and things to do. So there's a myriad amount of information out there. I'm trying to distill it down into the basics today, so you have a fundamental understanding of what you're up against and how to make it work. Absolutely.
okay.
So I want to get back to the noise level, if I could. Gene, our moderator, Gene, they meet at Polly's Pies, or they used to meet at Polly's Pies in Mission Viejo on Marguerite. Is that correct? It was at Polly's Pies, or what's the name of that place? Gene,
Which
where you-
club?
what?
What club?
Possibilities Unlimited.
Not in my time. They were meeting at
What's the name of that place?
Coco's.
Coco's. Okay, Coco's. Thank you.
Coco's in Mission Viejo.
All right, so they were in the back room of Coco's at Mission Viejo, and there's no wall between the main dining room and the back area. So there's a lot of noise that would come in
Mhm.
at that meeting. If you have a hybrid meeting and there's that much background noise, it's going to get picked up by the microphones. Even though Zoom is very good now and the metrics of Zoom have changed to focus more on the local environment of people who are talking, those background noises are still going to come in. Wine on Wednesday used to meet at Selma's. There was a glass wall, but it didn't really help the sound too much. That would be rumbling noise in the background and would definitely affect the Zoom meeting.
Mhm.
If you're meeting in a venue that has a private back room that doesn't have a lot of sound coming in from the other areas, you're going to be ahead of the game. And if you are meeting in a place that does, like Coco's, have that sort of situation, you want to do hybrid meeting, you're going to have to think about moving your meeting, because the sound is going to be a huge issue as you go forward in your meeting. Sound will disrupt it all. And if a lot of people right now, if they turned off their microphone and started clapping, then all these different faces will start popping up. And if somebody's giving a speech and you have all the sound happening in the background, that speech is going to get totally muted and taken away because of all the other background noises that go on. Absolutely. The next thing you need to consider in your venue is this: lighting. We're all talking about sound, but lighting is equally as important. When you have a Zoom meeting, we have your cameras set up. We're going to talk about that in a little while too, about the cameras and all that stuff. But you need to have good lighting. If you're meeting in a dark room, I think it was Saffron, when they were trying to do the one in Cyprus the club that never got off the ground, they were in this room that was really dark up in Cyprus. It was really crazy because the room was so dark. I could never imagine a meeting in there because of the darkness of that room. So lighting is really equally as important as sound, because you need to be able to see the people in the meeting, the speakers, yet at the same time, it's tricky because you have a computer or a projector or whatever you're using for the people who are online, and you need to be able to see them as well. So it's a very, very tricky thing. So lighting is very, very complex. And that's where I go back to this thing, experiment, 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 because it's going to take a little bit of time to get it right for your club and your venue. And of course, Wi-Fi. What kind of Wi-Fi does the venue itself have? Is it strong? Is it robust? Do you need to have a virtual hotspot with somebody's phone, using that as a Wi-Fi and then a computer? These are the things we have to think about. One of the things I always recommend is if you're in a venue and they have hardwired Cat5 connections in the room, if you bring a Cat5 cable with the appropriate adapter to go into a computer. Now in the old days, of course, we had computers that you could plug right into a network. Now I have this beautiful brand new Apple MacBook M1 chip thing that I'm using right now, and I have to have an adapter just to put in a flash drive. You have to think about the cabling, but if you can plug whatever you're using into your venue into a wall and hook into their Wi-Fi directly that way, that's going to give you the strongest and best signal of all. Not everything in this world is wireless, and not all wireless works all the time. Many things that happen in a venue, if you're using a lot of wireless, there's a lot of cell phones in the venue. It's going to degrade the amount of Wi-Fi that's in that room. So you have to think about all these different aspects of it when you're making a hybrid meeting. What's my signal? What is my signal strength? Here we have 43 people on this call right now. And if all 43 people were in the same room, all of them had their cell phones on, all of them were looking up the scores for the Dodger game, we know that we're going to have a degraded Wi-Fi, and the video is going to start fluttering and flipping out and not be of high quality for the people watching the meeting elsewhere in another environment. So Wi-Fi is really good. So think about the Wi-Fi, think about the strength, and if you have a local area network, or LAN network, use that if you can, because that will solve a lot of the Wi-Fi problems. And as I mentioned before, corporate clubs that have the necessary setup, the big screens, the beautiful microphones, the little, I don't know what they're called, you go in the middle of the room, they have the multi-dimensional speaker microphones that they can plug into their system. That's the best environment for those clubs. They're all set. And you can, of course, buy those things. They're not that expensive. One of the little round microphone things you can put into a room and plug into a computer to get better sound of people talking around the room. Those, I think they're like $20 or $30. They're not that much. And they're pretty good. And they pick up a lot of great sound. But again, you got to think about the sound behind the wall. A lot of experimentation. Cellular hotspots. As I said before, you might need to use a phone as a cellular hotspot if you're going to go Wi-Fi. Or your computer may be set up to do it on its own. When you have a cellular hotspot, the phone has to be fully charged because it sucks up a lot of energy. And your computers that you use in the meeting should also be fully charged because they suck up a lot of energy. Keep that in mind. A lot of people might walk in, oh, I have my computer I used all day, let's do a meeting. Make sure you bring your connection to make sure you can recharge it. You need to do it. It won't work otherwise. You're going to run out of juice pretty quickly. Absolutely. Now, if you're in a corporate meeting, and this is a tricky thing with a hybrid meeting. If you're in a corporate club, but you have people who are not in the corporation who are part of the meeting, you have to make sure that they're able to get into your Wi-Fi or online network if you're going to go hybrid meeting. Zoom is one thing, but if you're going to go in a corporate setting where you're using some other setup other than Zoom and you the corporation doesn't feel comfortable having these people log in to a room, a meeting room that are outside of the meeting, you must make sure those people have the permission to do it. It's a tricky thing. There are a lot of clubs, a lot of companies that really value the privacy of their employees. They value the essence of what they're doing, but they don't want it to get out into the public. There's a club, it's a medical device club. I can't remember which one it is, somewhere in Irvine, that they will not let anybody join the meeting or go to the meeting unless they've been fully vetted. That's crazy. I know that Ziggurat Toastmasters is the same thing because they meet inside the federal building. They have to be fully vetted. You have to go to get strip search before you go into that meeting. So it's very interesting how you look at these corporate clubs and what they're doing with their privacy issues. And that's an important consideration when you go to a hybrid meeting. Can you all meet in a hybrid situation in a corporation boardroom and have people come in from the outside? Make sure that that's something that's a reality. Most people don't think about that, but it is a reality. Absolutely. When you have your venue, most of you know that the best setup for a Toastmasters meeting is the U shape. Tables that go like this, like this, like this. At the head of the table, at the top of the U, usually is the Toastmaster or the podium or the lectern or whatever it is that you're using. And the tables go down, and that's where the members are sitting, and they're all looking inward. That is the best thing. And if you have a corporate meeting and you're doing that, that's great. If you have a social meeting, that's great too. The U shape is the way to go. That's where it gets tricky. Where do you set up the camera? Or do you have two cameras? Do you have one that looks at the U from the open part of the U and one that looks at from the other side? Do you focus solely on the speaker or the front of the meeting? Is it wide angle lens enough to go around and see all the people in the meeting? Again, you have to experiment and see how that works. That's a tricky subject, and it's going to take some time to figure that out. And it goes back to that lighting thing. Is there enough lighting on the sides to see those people on the sides as opposed to the person right in front? And if you're doing that with a camera in front, where are you projecting your people who are meeting online? Is it off to the side? Is it at the end of the U? Is it opposite the speaker? There's a lot of considerations. You have to map that out. It's not easy. Think about it for a minute. Where do you put the camera in a U-shaped meeting? Or do you have two? And if so, and what kind of cameras are you going to use? Are they video cameras on a tripod that are going in the middle of that U? Are they little GoPros on a stick? Are you using a phone? Are you using an iPad? I don't know. There's a lot of consideration to be made when you talk about where are the cameras going to go. Wide angle shots can often lack resolution as well. When you get onto the fringes areas, my hands are in here now, but I go like this, they fade away. That's sometimes what happens with wide angle shots. We need to consider that when you're setting it up. How much are you going to see when you place that camera in a certain spot? It's really quite complicated, and it takes time, and things need to be moved around. You have to have a couple of people off site or monitoring what's going on and say, oh, and then calling in on a separate line, or maybe in the Zoom call itself. Yeah, this works, this doesn't work. You can always set up a Zoom meeting just to do the experiment with 2 or 3 people outside of the room or outside the venue and 2 or 3 people in the venue and do some setup and testing. That'd be my recommendation, because the venue is going to tell you everything from sound to lighting to where you set up the camera to the best way to present those speakers who are coming in. Sounds like a lot, isn't it? That's only half of it. Staff. I call it staff because everybody in the club is a member of the staff. But it takes a village to run a hybrid meeting. It takes a village. You need a tech master. and more than one. I know that Newport Harbor Toastmasters uses, I believe, 3 different tech masters. They have one guy who's really proficient. They have an incredible setup, which we'll talk about. But most importantly, you need at least 1 or 2 or 3 people who understand the entire process, because not everyone's going to be at every meeting at every day. So tech master is equally as important as sergeant at arms. Sergeant at arms is going to set up the tables. They're going to probably help the tech master set things up. And it takes a good 30 minutes to set things up to do a hybrid meeting in a venue, at least 30 minutes. To get the tripod set up, the camera, make sure everything's working, plugged in, things are charged, people can see things. You need 1 or 2 or 3 tech masters, people who understand it. And when it comes to equipment, what equipment are you using? Are you using the tech masters equipment? Are club members contributing the equipment? And is there a number of people who are contributing equipment every week? For instance, if you have a tech master who has a 2-week vacation scheduled and you're using their equipment all the time, are they going to leave it behind and let you use it? And is that equipment safely stored in the meeting venue, or are they bringing it with them each week, trucking it in and out? A lot of considerations. Tech masters very, very key to making this all work. And everybody in that meeting should understand the basics of how to set this up, so that when it comes time to fill in for the tech master, you have a pool of talent there to do it. Not an easy task at all. And I know a lot of people are going, oh my God, it's so much. I thought it'd be so easy. I just plug in a computer and plug in a microphone and go. Well, certainly you can do that. However, if you want to do it right, you have to take these other things into consideration. And again, are you using your computer each week? Are you using somebody else's computer each week? All main things to know. When it comes to the equipment that you're going to use, storage of the equipment is important. Does it stay on the site? And is the site secure? Because when we talk about a notebook computer or an iPad, cameras, tripods, projectors, all those things, that all costs money. And if it gets stolen, the club is out a lot. You have to think about where are we going to store it? Or is that part of the sergeant at arms duty to bring it? Or do the sergeant at arms bring the things that you need for the club, such as the banners and the ballots, all that stuff for the in-person meeting, and set it all up? And does the tech master bring all the equipment for the meeting, or do members bring their own computers for the meeting? It's a Wild West world, people. It's the Wild West out there. And there's no set answer. Because it goes back to that thing where I said before, you have to experiment with the venue, experiment with the club until you get it right that works for you. There is no one size fits all situation. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or am I totally hallucinatory? I don't know. Gene, am I crazy?
Hold on a second. Comments. Hybrids turn U-shape.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll let us know. But let's get down to the heart of the matter. We know that the venue is going to work. We know how the tables are going to be set up, or the table, or whatever it is that we're using. We know we have issues of lighting and sound to deal with. And we have a club that has zero budget. How do we make this work? How do we make this work? Everybody has one of these. Can we see it? A phone, a mobile phone. The most basic way to do a hybrid meeting is to use your phone. Have everybody log into your Zoom meeting, use the sound on your phone, and just do it sound only. And what's interesting about doing sound only is that when you have someone give a speech offline and it's only them talking, it gives a whole new dimension to listening to somebody's speech as opposed to looking at them. It's really quite remarkable what you hear when you're not distracted by the visual. I actually recommend trying it at some meetings. Have some people do their whole speech, 5 to 7 minute speech with no visual at all, and listen to them talk. And you will hear the quality of their speaking, their tonal quality, how they do with vocal variety, inflection, word usage, all the things we know are so valuable in a toast without the visual part. Everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Ken, but visual communication is 90% visual and only 10% verbal." I agree. But if we get that 10% down to 10% perfect, the 90% is not that hard to get, because we know how to look out either at a dot or in an audience and make that thing happen. The second way to do it, a phone, camera on the back, put it on a tripod. Tripods are 20 bucks, 30 bucks at the most. Those little twisty tripod things. You can put it that way. People can see the Zoom meeting happening on your phone. Zoom, of course, works on a phone. Teams works on a phone. WebEx works on a phone. You must determine which software, of course, you're going to use for your club meeting. That is an important factor that we haven't gotten to yet. Are you going to stay with Zoom? Are you going to stay with Teams? Are you going to stay with WebEx? Those are the top three. They all work on the phone, and you can do it all with a phone on a tripod. And if you do that and you have the U shape, my recommendation is to have a table at the other end of the U where the camera can look out at the audience as you're doing the meeting. For those people who are meeting online, if you're doing a hybrid meeting, and then the sergeant at arms would take that phone and flip it around. So hopefully people can see this little tiny person in the phone that's just this big from wherever they're sitting, do their speech in the hybrid meeting, if that's what you're going to do. It can work. And that's the least expensive way to do a hybrid meeting, is to use your phone. I recommend an iPhone 12 or 11, the Pro Max one, because the screen's bigger, or if you have a Galaxy S, I can't remember the exact number, it has a big screen. To do that, you can do the same thing with a iPad, even better if you have that option, or a Surface tablet, either or. So you can have that visual going on, and it's a little bit bigger, and you don't have to really worry about projectors, all that other stuff that goes on. A notebook computer or an iPad is the next step, the next level beyond the phone. I could take this computer I have right now, and it's a 13-inch computer, and I can put it in a room, connect it to the Wi-Fi, run Zoom on this thing, have the screen show, and people will be able to do a hybrid meeting. And anybody who has a notebook computer can do that. If you have Zoom and you know how to use Zoom, you don't need really a tech master for that. You can just do it. It depends, again, where you place this so people can see everything that's going on. Again, if you have that U shape and you have that table or spot in the middle, people could look at it and see. If you have a 16-inch computer, even better, because it's a little bigger screen. That's something that you really need to consider using. But then you have to talk about the bandwidth. How much bandwidth do you need in that room to make it work? There's latency issues if you have a lot of people on this call. We have a lot of blacked out screens right now, so that's helping our bandwidth. And if you are in a room and you have only 2 or 3 people on the hybrid part of it, you're going to be okay. If you have 20 or 30, you got to make sure they're blacked out, because you don't know exactly how much bandwidth your Wi-Fi can take in that venue. And that's an important thing. But a computer, it's like this one that I have, it can handle a lot of bandwidth. With the Zoom network, again, it depends all on the Wi-Fi. And the good news, and this is really the good news, you don't need high definition. You don't need to be at 1440 DPI to make this work. You can be at 720, you can even be at 360 to make it work. So if you cut your DPI down and you don't go with broadcast quality, but you go with a quality that you can see, you're going to have a much better outcome when you talk about bandwidth using a phone or a computer like this or an iPad. Very, very important to think about the bandwidth and the equipment that you have and what it can handle. In a print environment, they always say you need 300 DPI or dots per inch, so to speak, to make things come out crisp and clear. And in broadcast, it's 1440 DPI to have good pixelation and good visuals. 720 you can get away with, like I said. 360 you can get away with, but don't go below 360 because then everything's be all kind of modeled, as it were. Not a good thing. You don't need to have a lot of money to do this. You just need to make sure you have a computer that works, or a phone that works, or a tablet that works. That will help the meeting go along. You don't need a lot. But if you have some money, this is where it gets fun. This is where it really gets fun. There are mixing boards where you can plug your computer into, and you can mix things and have your computer and the people talking online. And then that board has an outboard port where you can run a cable into a projector and project it online, and it can look just like a studio broadcast. You can have 2 or 3 cameras. It can be either wired or wireless on tripods, somebody operating the cameras, or they're set stationary depending on how the room is set up, and highlight those people. It goes into a mixing board and then goes into Zoom, and it looks like a broadcast situation. Do you need a projector? Maybe, maybe not. But if you have one, you don't necessarily need a screen, but you need a blank wall or blank area to project out the video that you're doing with all the people that are online. And microphones. What kind of microphones do you need? Are they wireless? Are they lavalier mics? These are all things that you have to think about doing. A lavalier mic is the little clip-on thing that will have a wireless connection to your computer, and that can run off of an iPad as well as a regular computer. Those lavalier mics are very inexpensive. You can get them for as little as $30, $40. And you can also get little GoPro cameras for less than $100 that will do a very nice job of broadcasting out towards the meeting that you're trying to do. But those you have to put on a tripod or have a stick, like a selfie stick, some other thing like that, that makes it work so that you can look at the meeting from various different angles. It's really about the experimentation of what you want to do. And you have to look at your club's funds to make sure that the club funds make sense for what you want to accomplish. Think about what you want to accomplish in a hybrid meeting. Do you want to retain the members? You want them to all feel a part of it. At the same time, do you want to make sure that the members have equal access in the live meeting? It's a kind of a fun thing to do. For those who want to see the high-end version of how to do a hybrid meeting, Newport Harbor Toastmasters is sort of the creme de la creme. They have what they call a meeting in a box with a mixer board, cameras, microphones, projectors. And what they have is they have a person who is a Zoom master, a tech master, and a Toastmaster, all interacting with each other during the meeting. The Zoom master is helping the people who are on Zoom. The Toastmaster is helping everybody, of course, and the tech master is running things from behind the scenes. It's really quite amazing when you look at it. They have all kinds of cables. You have to make sure your cabling works. Make sure you have the correct cables. That's always an important thing. And when you think about the mixing board and the soundboard, again, that tech master knows how to run those little levers and go from camera A to camera B if you're having 2 cameras, make sure the sound's up and down on it. And that's why I said before, you need 2 or 3 tech masters, people who understand that whole process, not just in how to run it, but how to set it up and how to take it down so you can use it again next week. There's a lot of consideration. So what are the basics for a hybrid meeting? A phone or a tablet or a notebook computer, those 3 things. If you have one of those 3 things, you can have a hybrid meeting. You don't need anything else. However, you can expand out from there and do what you want to do in your club meeting. And that's an exciting challenge for clubs. A lot of people have a lot of fun things. I have a phone, I have a notebook computer. I don't have a projector, but our club has a projector in San Clemente. And I now have to find out what kind of cable that has so we can use that projector and plug it in to a notebook computer like the one I'm using right now so that we can make that work. Microphones on notebook computers such as this one or on the phone are very good at picking up sound within about a 20-foot radius, maybe a 25-foot radius. Beyond that, you really want to consider having a remote microphone, be it a lavalier, a handheld regular microphone that either plugs in or is wireless. After about 20, 25 feet, sound becomes a little bit iffy. If I were to stand up and walk to the other side of the room, I'm not going to sound as good as I do now. And if you were at the speech contest earlier this year, those people who moved backwards when they were giving their speeches in the speech contest, it was harder to hear them until they got closer to the thing that they were using, be it the phone or the computer, whatever they were using. That's a major consideration when you talk about microphones. So there's a lot to think about in a hybrid meeting. There's a lot to think about. And I posted these talking points in the chat so you can refer back to them and understand what you're up against. And it's not an easy task, but it is going to be a rewarding one because you're going to have more members, more member involvement. And it's a great way to make sure you retain members, because if you have 3 or 4 or 5 people who are involved in the tech side of doing this, they're going to renew their membership to help the club succeed. I hope so, at least. And it's going to make the club more cohesive. A compelling argument, I believe, to do a hybrid meeting. And it is the future. As we look at our business future, as the masks go away, companies have discovered, like I said earlier, that's a lot cheaper to do a meeting like this than to fly somebody to New York or Timbuktu or whatever it is and have those meetings. Gene, you have something?
We have a question. Are you going to talk about projector options?
Absolutely.
You can get pocket projectors for not a lot of money these days.
That is correct. You can get great projectors for as little as $100. And I know that Epson has a great projector. Toshiba has one. I'm not familiar too much. I know Samsung has one, but I've never seen it in use, so I can't really talk about that one. But I know that Epson has a great projector for 100 to 120 bucks that plugs into either your computer via a USB type port or into your phone. You can run a cable, RCA, if you have that plugged still. The only problem is, I'm going to tell you right now, is with Apple products specifically, since they changed into the new formats about a year and a half ago, you need all new cabling because they have these little tiny connectors, look like this one right here. That's for the phone, and that's even an old style one. If you look at the new connectors for them, and they're also talking about wireless charging where you put it on a pad. Hang on here. There we go. Sorry about moving that around. If you look at that, this is a different kind of a connector for an Apple computer. And if you look at the end of it, you can't really see it so well. It's a very different type of connector than we've ever had before in the Apple world. I know that in the PC world, USB, ABC, USB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is they're up to now, all work. It's an amazing thing, but you have to really think about the cabling. Cabling is really important. And with the new projectors, I believe you can get different cable options depending on what your computer is. But before you buy a projector of any sort, definitely check to make sure it's going to be compatible with the computer that you're using, be it an iPad, a notebook computer, phone, whatever it is you're using. And yes, this is a computer. Make no mistake about that.
I didn't see it.
What?
I didn't see it.
Oh,
I
your
looked away
phone is
just-
your phone is a
okay.
computer. Your phone is a computer. There's this. Remember this thing in my hand
Oh, yeah, true.
has 75,000 more computing power than they took to the moon in 1969. They had, what was it, half 1/2 megabyte of computing power in Apollo 11. This thing has gigabytes of power. It's insane what goes on. So you consider that everything you have can work. You have to experiment to see what works best for you and your club. It's not an easy, like I said, one size fits all scenario. But when you go through and you do the work and you work on it, you'll get there. You'll get to the point where you find out, oh, this works great. It doesn't work great. I'm excited about it because I know I'm really missing meeting in person. We haven't met in person, what was it, 15, 16 months now. I miss it. I miss it tremendously. And I believe a lot of people feel the same way. When we start meeting in person, membership is going to jump up, which is very important. And when you meet in person and membership jumps up, you have to be prepared for that with membership forms, member guest packets, all that other stuff. There are digital versions that are out there. I can give it to anybody who wants. I have all that stuff on the computer. I can email anybody who wants it. Or you have that stuff in a packet ready to go at the meeting, because that's going to help. And the hybrid meeting is going to help you attract more members, because every week people may not be able to come every week to the in-person meeting, but maybe they want to come every 3 weeks, and then 1 week they want to be online. A great reason to have a hybrid meeting. But look at the cables, look at things, and yes, projectors, those people want to do projectors and do it that way. You can do it for projectors for little as $100. There's a website called OfferUp. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. If you're looking for some used equipment on offerup.com, you might be able to find what you're looking for the club for pennies on the dollar. I bought a wine refrigerator there for literally pennies on the dollar for the wine that was in my living room. Think about different used sites. There's one for Macintoshes. There's like 2 or 3 of those. Go on Google, do a search. You can find used equipment. If your club has a little bit of money that they want to spend and you don't want to spend a lot, you don't need to have this year's model. Although I do recommend that you don't get anything older than 2 years, because you want to make sure that the operating system of the computer that you're using is up to date as possible to handle Zoom, WebEx, and Teams. When you go back 1 or 2 or 3 years, the new computer that computer that you have may not be able to handle the latest version of the software, and your meeting will not be as robust. I got a new computer. It helps my meetings go great online. My old computer could not handle Zoom in a new format and would look really cheesy. So you have to consider that too.
Ken, there are a couple of questions for you in the chat box.
All right.
I just reposted one from Susan, but a couple up asked, will a recording of the session be available for us later?
Absolutely, there'll be a recording that's available later. And then I guess, Kim, you put in here, do you have a checklist for the equipment needed? What is the amount of equipment for a good Toastmasters meeting? Well, like I said before, the minimum is a notebook, a phone, or an iPad or Surface tablet, that sort of thing. That's the thing that we really need to know. That's the bare minimum. And if you really want to go crazy, you have those types of equipments, and then you have a mixing board cabled in, and you have somebody running the levers to make sure everything's syncing correctly. And that takes a lot of work. And Christy Matola, thank you for putting that in. Yeah, like I said, Newport Center, Toastmasters has the absolute best setup that I've seen so far in the Founders District for what I call a high-end meeting, but they spend a lot of money on that stuff. It's my understanding, Christy, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that you guys have about $2,000 worth of equipment. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly that's what it is. We have nice Mevo cameras. We have a selection of mics and a mixing board in that. And a good portion of our equipment we had, both based on my background and Zip's background. So Zip Cyber is our technical director. And so what we've done is we've created what we call hybrid meeting in a box. Therefore, there's additional components that we have, but it all fits into one box. Later on this afternoon at 2 o'clock, I have a couple of slides that I'll show for people that are interested in seeing what's under the hood in the
Yeah,
box.
I recommend going to view all that. It's really amazing what they have there. I'm totally blown away by it. But like I said before, what they do in their meetings, they have somebody in the room, they have somebody running the Zoom, they have a tech master. So there's 3 people right there involved in making those meetings happen. So staffing is equally, if not more important than the actual equipment. You have to have people who understand how to run the equipment, how to run the meeting, but you have to have those people and they have to be trained. And there are going to be trainings for all this coming up very shortly. Indeed, we're going to have more dialed in seminars about this in the district, and you'll be hearing about those coming up. Absolutely. What else do we want to know, people? There's got to be something. I think I was,
Yeah, I have a question.
yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Hoi Shan, VPE from Challengers in Laguna
Yeah,
Hills.
congratulations on your member Jamar going all the way into the beyond the district.
Thank you. President represents. My question here is, what frequency will be good? So for example, in our club, we talk about, hey, maybe we'll have one Zoom meeting, one hybrid, and a mixture of something. Do you have a suggestion in terms of meeting cadence and method?
Yes, I do. I think every club should have 2 hybrid meetings a month, as well as 2 in-person meetings a month. That's for those people who are meeting weekly. If you're meeting monthly, it should always just be a hybrid meeting. And if you're meeting every other week, it should also just be a hybrid meeting. So you cater to all members, but not every meeting does not necessarily have to be a hybrid meeting. But I feel for those people who are not in those meetings because they probably want to know what's going on. And it's hard for the VPE to go ahead and assign club roles if they're not there at the meeting. So that's the whole thing. But I think at least a minimum of 2 a month. But I really think that maybe a club really should consider doing it every week. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it becomes second nature, just like having a regular in-person meeting or a regular just Zoom meeting. Although I will say this, one thing you can do, instead of thinking about hybrid specific, you can always go back to once a month having a Zoom meeting. And if you pay for your meeting venue on a weekly basis, for instance, if you have to pay $100 a month for your meeting venue and it's based on $25 a week for 4 meetings a month, if you want to save the club some money, have 1 meeting a month in Zoom and have 3 hybrid meetings, something like that. But every club needs to decide on their own what they want to do, what's best for their members. So there's no real answer to that other than my recommendation is have hybrid meetings, have in-person meetings, but try and make it all happen for everybody and make sure no one is excluded from having those meetings. I know that's kind of a weird answer, but that's just thoughts. Christopher, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm in the same club as Hoi Shan. So one of the things, the staffing issue is the one that really concerns me the most, because not everyone's of a technical bent. Not everyone's going to remember how this wire plugged into that wire and the like. So my thoughts on a lot of this are based on the simplest thing I can produce, and still offer a quality experience that has good audio. I'm thinking 2 cameras, like you mentioned, one on the speaker, one on the group.
Right.
Probably 2 separate logins into Zoom, and someone to manage one of them to be able to move around the spotlight if needed or the like.
Right.
And then of course, like you said, some way to look at whoever's talking. I did see an article, I'm trying to find it right now. Someone mentioned like a $500 setup where they bought a 32-inch screen because those are so cheap anymore and tried to set it up. But that's a lot of equipment to haul around.
That's a lot of equipment to haul around. That's why I keep saying one of the best ways to do it is just using a large notebook computer or a large iPad or tablet computer of some sort and put it on a tripod That is the least expensive way you're going to get around all this. That is the absolute least expensive way.
Yeah,
And I
you know,
believe that's the key. That's going to be the key to start with. And it's going to take time. You're not going to be able to do it full blown like Newport Harbor unless you have the equipment already. You're not going to
well,
be able to do it.
one of the things to know, I mean, my company runs meetings all the time in person around the world, and we have hybrid. And I mean, the high end equipment, we have a huge budget to spend on stuff. So they've got cameras that track the microphone. You have 10 or 15 active mics on a table, or mics that you push the button and talk in those, you know, kind of
Right.
panel sessions. And the camera tracks to whoever's talking. And I mean, it'd be nice to do that, but I have seen some of that equipment relatively affordable, but you're still probably talking about $1,000, $2,000 of investment just to
Oh,
be able to get started.
absolutely. That's why I say start small and work your way up to it. Start small and work your way up to it, because most clubs do not have that kind of a budget. They just don't have it. And it doesn't and nor does it make sense, because things change, people change, venues change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to start small and work your way up to it. But getting one of those things you put in the middle of the table that has a multi-directional microphone.
Yeah, I
And
think we called them polycoms. Yeah.
thank you. I can't think of the name. Thank you. Exactly. That's what you got to get, one of those. Those are really cheap. You can get those very, very cheap, like 20, 30, like I said, 20, 30 bucks. That is a great way to start. And you plug that into your computer or whatever you're using and use that as your base. That's a great way to go too. Or your phone. There's no real great way to say, you know, this is how you do it. There's no real equipment list that you can say this is what you need. You need to start with the basics, and then as the club finds their path, then they can go ahead and determine what their actual needs are. A lot of it's based on the venue itself. The venue will tell you pretty much what you need. If you're in a narrow room, you're only going to need one camera. If you're in a wide room, you might need two cameras. Again, the venue tells you a lot. One person asked here, does your Zoom Master switch the active camera? They can do that, or your Tech Master can do that, either or, depending on how you.
Yeah,
And-
again, I'm trying to come up with a way to minimize the touch points on the software itself to have it be a freestanding. That's why I was asking. Someone having to switch the active camera.
Yeah, well, again,
an
but if
extra task.
but the question then becomes, with Zoom, if you have both cameras looking in, somebody's going to have to two cameras. Somebody will have to switch back and forth between those two cameras. Absolutely. But one person can handle that and the Zoom thing together. It's not that hard.
But if you logged in with two different devices, you could have one camera on each, and then the
Right,
online
yeah.
person would experience and
Yes,
see both cameras.
That's one way of doing it as well. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a question, Ken. It's Susan. I don't know if I can turn on the screen. I don't think I can. Yeah, I can't. But I wanted to ask you, as far as the attendance, once you have people showing up, and do you know what Toastmasters International says about people having like the COVID-19 vaccine versus people that don't have it, that are
I know exactly the stance of Toastmasters. I'll tell you right now.
Okay.
Toastmasters says that whatever the local health authority says to do is what you should do for a Toastmasters meeting. If the local health authority says everybody still needs to wear a mask, you can meet in person, but you're all wearing a mask, you can do that. If you can meet in person without a mask, if you're vaccinated, you're now able to do that. Cal OSHA said 2 days ago that you can meet in person without a mask, and you do not need to wear a mask in a workplace. Therefore, if you think about Toastmasters meeting as being a part of an extension of a workplace, you don't need to be masked if you're vaccinated. If you're unvaccinated, then you still need to wear a mask if you're going to be there in person. Or my recommendation for a club, if the person is not vaccinated, have them join via Zoom or your hybrid setup until they get vaccinated. Because the number one issue is you don't want to have one of your members potentially infecting other members. And even though you've been vaccinated, you can still get COVID-19 from somebody who has it and has not been vaccinated. So you have to be very careful with that. That's
Yeah.
my recommendation. Make sure if everybody's vaccinated, you have no worries. If you have 2 or 3 people who are wearing a mask and are being careful, that's okay. But if they're not vaccinated and they're not wearing a mask, you could potentially put the members in person in jeopardy. And you don't want to do that. And that's the stance of Cal OSHA. That's the stance of the California Health Department. And of course, the stance of Toastmasters, because they say that whatever the local government highest authority says goes in a Toastmasters meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense because there's still people that don't want to get the vaccine and you don't know who those people are.
Yeah. Well, you have to ask people to be honest about it.
Yeah.
You can say, Mr. Member number 12, have you been vaccinated?
Mhm.
And if member number 12 says yes, but they weren't, that'd be a pretty bad violation of ethics, I think.
Yeah.
They need to be honest about it. Absolutely. Somebody said something about having 2 people logged in with 2 different Zoom things. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can have 2 different cameras logged in with the same Zoom thing.
I'm not talking about accounts. I'm talking about the actual logins to the Zoom session. So you're only allowed to have 1 active camera in your Zoom session. So if you wanted 2 active cameras, you would just log in twice.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I was reading the chat here.
Can I have a question regarding contests? If
Sure.
an area has a contest, do we need 3 people to be in charge of the tech part in order to participate? And what is your suggestion for clubs to participate in an area level contest? Let's start at just area.
For speech contests, as you know, in the past year and a half, they've all been online. And we've had tech masters who operate the camera or the Zoom, and they're recording the contest. And then those things get sent off to Toastmasters to be judged for those who did it in the division level and above. For area contests, you will need 1 or 2 people to run the tech masters situation. However, I'm going to say this right now. It's my understanding that Toastmasters is going to come out and say, yes, you can have speech contests in person again, and it will all be judged pretty much on the person being live. That's my understanding. So we might not have to worry about this as an option for a speech contest. But we won't have that answer until September. That's what I've been told. But I understand your concern. But yes, you have to have a number of people running it if it's a hybrid situation. If you have a speech contest and it's in person, you still need to just do it like a regular club meeting where there's a camera on the stage, somebody's standing there doing their speech, their international speech, and everybody's watching it in the audience. And just like we did a couple or 3 years ago where we recorded it in person, live and in person, it'll be that same sort of setup where somebody's behind a camera and they're making a recording. And in this case, we just go via cable into the Zoom.
So you've got chief judges and you have timers that you have to be concerned about in area contest also.
Right, but if it's live, then they'll be in the room. And if it's online, then they won't. Just like we did before. It won't be, I don't think it'll be mixed. I don't think you'll have a timer on Zoom and a timer in the room. That would not make sense. That would not make sense at all. You would have to have everybody either in the room or online, but not both.
Good.
Because
good
the
input.
judges, let me say this, because the judges are going to look at somebody standing on a stage in person and judge them by all the criteria that we know as Toastmasters. Are they standing up straight? Are they in the middle of the stage? Do they go out of the stage bounds? All those different things that go on when you're judging a contestant. If it's online, then they would do it online, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have 4 judges in the room and 3 online. That would not work because it'd be a totally different experience for both to have good judging.
I hate it
It
when
wouldn't
you're
make
right.
sense.
I hate
Ken,
it when
sorry.
you're right.
Sorry,
What?
Ken, this is June from the Toastmaster. This meeting will end in 5 minutes. So
Okay.
if you want to wrap up.
Okay. So is there any other questions? Are there any other questions?
An announcement if there's no questions.
Yeah,
Shiva.
go ahead.
Oh, I just put in the chat that I'm looking for 3 area directors for Division F for the upcoming term starting next month. So if anyone's interested or know anyone who's interested or just want to know more info, you can contact me. I just put my email and phone number in the chat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You should definitely sign up to be an area director in F. And I will tell you a little secret. F right now is in the process of forming a couple of new clubs, which are not going to happen before the end of June, but they are going to happen. So if you're an area director and you want to be a President's Distinguished Area Director, talk to Shiva and see if you can become an area director. She'll give you the leg up.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's definitely changed
That'll
my
be
life a
that'll be
lot.
a bonus for you as an area director. Absolutely. Well, I hope everybody downloaded my little talking points. I hope that I've sort of opened your eyes that this is not a cookie cutter, simply out of the box scenario, that every club has to find their venue and what works for them. Think about the equipment that you have in hand before you go out and start buying things. Experiment with it. Talk to your members and poll them and have a discussion in one of your meetings and find out from your members what they want to do in regards to having a hybrid meeting and who has what kind of equipment sitting there. Do the members have cameras? Do they have microphones? Do they have computers? What do they have? The goal is to have the club not spend money or very much money at all. I always hate it when my club dues go up. I think I'm not the only one. Keep that in mind as you go about doing this. And think of all the considerations of light, sound, setup, all the different things that happen in a regular meeting, and think about it through the lens of a camera and how that's going to affect the quality of your club meeting. Because a good quality club meeting means you retain members and gain members and have every club become President's Distinguished. That's how it works. Thank you, everybody. If you have any other questions, let's go for it. I think we're at the end.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's a lot of stuff to think about. And I call this the harsh reality check of how to do a hybrid meeting, because like I said, it's not what happens with the equipment, but it's more about the people and how you interact in your environment. Absolutely. Oh yeah, Harry Mullen talked about Marcus. Marcus has a lot of good stuff too in Switzerland.
I saved the chat. There was a lot of great tips and tricks, and thank you, Ken, very much for your time. Very
Oh, you're
well
welcome.
done.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ken. I'm sure we will all be talking together with you and with others and with our clubs to see how we can
I
go.
forgot to mention something. We're forming a task force throughout the district with members from each division to be on a hybrid meeting task force. If you want to be on that, send me a quick email, kenspears1960@gmail.com, and you can be part of that task force. And we're going to go around the district and help everybody get to the point to where they need to be with hybrid meetings. Absolutely. So there will be a task force.
Can you type an email address here?
Yeah, I will quickly type it in. I will type it in.
Thank you.
Hold on. Why can't I see everybody? It's so weird. I don't have the ability to get to everybody.
Our host has disabled video.
No, it's not the video. I'm talking
Well, I
about.
think in the chat, if you click 2 and there's like a little arrow, and I think you
No,
have-
no, no, I know, I understand that. What I'm saying is I can't hit everyone. I can't hit everyone in the different thing.
Or do you want to verbally say your email? I could type
I'll
it in.
verbally say it. Are you ready?
Okay,
Ken,
great.
Ken, SPEARS,
SPARS.
like Brittany. Spears, right?
SPARS
Brittany, right? Just like Brittany. Ken Spears, 1960
960.
at gmail.com.
You got it. There you go.
Thanks. Yeah, if you want to be on the task force, definitely let me know and we'll talk about it. Send me your info. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
How technical do people need to be on the task force?
They don't. They just need to be willing to help out.
Thank you, everyone. This meeting will end soon. I'm so sorry I have to stop it because another meeting will start in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you everyone for coming. I hope I've opened everybody's eyes. It's not an easy road, but it's going to be an interesting one.